You either pay for the risk down the road, or you buy down risk on the front end, right?
One of the worst ones I ever saw was involving three brothers who all got crossways with each other, and they ended up in court for 3 years trying to
Jeez.
fight over ownership of the company.
What if we just acted as if insurance didn't exist? We have an alternate universe where insurance wasn't a thing. Like no one knew what it was. And so what would you do if you still had your mission, whether it's a for nonprofit business or even a personalized customer? Like, it's a little bit different, but the business side of it is, okay, would you have that charity golf tournament? I appreciate you not talking at all about the Cowboys, because I thought we were talking about legitimate football teams. Not that UT plays that way either.
Disclaimer, the views are the guests alone, not those of the host or sponsors.
Welcome to a new episode of From Boots to Boardroom. I'm your host, Hari Vasudevan, founder and CEO of Cairo AI. Previously, I was the founder and CEO of Think Power Solutions. The show shares entrepreneurial journeys of those who power America. Presenting sponsor of the show is Cairo AI. Digitize work and maximize profits. For more information, visit cairo.ai. Today, I'm joined by two super special guests who I've known for a very long time, Mark Frederiksen and Christian Frederiksen. Christian Frederiksen has been an attorney for over 30 years. His practice focuses on construction and business litigation. Christian spends his free time enjoying his kids' sports and other activities, including watching the Texas Longhorns. Mark Frederiksen is the president of Frederiksen Frederiksen, a fourth-generation independent insurance agency based in Dallas, Texas. Mark is married with two awesome kids. He says he's way cooler than his younger cousin, Christian. He's also a Texas Longhorn. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Hey there.
And just as we welcomed you guys, Christian
dropped off. Yes, there you go. Well, it was the whole I was cooler than him, and he must have gotten upset already. So we'll have to smooth that out a little bit. We'll fix it in post, Hari. Let's just do that. Fix it in post. That's how life works.
Anyway, what's going on otherwise?
Oh, it's all good. Like I said, it's funny. Every start of the new year, some people are like, I'm still recovering from the old year. And then some people are like, I'm ready to go for the new year. And it's like, it's weird, that dichotomy of like how you want to view the new year. Is it opportunity, or are you just trying to catch your breath?
Yeah. Now, has it started hitting full swing for you guys yet?
Pretty much, because it's like our industry will shut down, not completely, but the last couple weeks of the year, people are trying to squeeze in that vacation.
Yeah.
And then they don't want to visit agents or talk to it. But then comes January, we got sales goals. We got things we've got to do. We've got to, start pre-planning our 2026. And it's like, okay, I'm just trying to catch my breath. Like I said, I just got done with these things, and now you want to do this, but it's just, it's just the way it is. It's the same thing every year. It's just funny that, like I said, some people are like, you've been gone for like 2 weeks, and now you're itching to get going. And I've been working while you've been doing nothing.
Interesting.
Pardon me if I don't respond just yet.
Yeah, no. What happened to him, man? He's not in back.
He's not texting me anything. I can text him and say, hey, where'd you go, if you want. So
I think he's really mad at you for
that was clearly, I could tell by the look on his face. Here, let me text him just to say sorry about the whole cooler than you talk. Actually, I can't apologize for that, Hari. Truth is just my final defense, right? Did y'all travel? What did you do over your holidays? You went somewhere, right?
We went to Thailand and Cambodia.
Yeah. Okay. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Good. You should go.
Okay.
I can set it up for you. So.
Can you? Okay. I've got to figure out where my family will let me take them. You know, is there a mall in Thailand? Is there a water park in Thailand? You know, I
True,
don't
true,
need, I
true,
don't
true,
need,
true Americans.
totally. I mean, it's like, guys, like there's more than just, yeah. My family's big on water parks. That's why Atlantis is always a big destination because it's like, okay, but at some point as the old man, you're like, I'm not looking as good in my swimsuit as I used to. Plus, we've been there, done that. Let's go somewhere, you
Yeah.
know? So, Christian, I see dots. Hold on a second. Let me see what he says. Um, he says, lost internet, hold please.
Yeah.
So,
Tell
all
him he
right.
can actually join using
He's using his phone app, right?
yeah, just phone actually.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
It's actually really clear, crystal clear actually. So
Okay. But would you go to Thailand again?
Thailand, yeah, I would. Different
Okay.
places. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's always the key. It's like the thing like, would you go again?
Yes.
That's your sign of approval. It's like, yes, I might do some things differently, but regardless, I would still take my family or I would go just myself and do something. It's like
100%.
our Alaskan cruise thing, which we did. That was our trip before kids, which you always seem to remember, right? The
Yes.
trip before the kids arrived.
Yeah.
So, but it's also funny where you're like, okay, but I could go with kids now and we could do these things. Or you're like, I don't know, I could still go without kids. I'm okay.
I think our last trip with our kids was actually to Alaska too, actually. So
Was it? Okay. Yeah, which is great. I mean, like I said, I would do it again, honestly. Um, and there's a lot of the same things I would do. And then, like, I may not buy all the Russian jewels I didn't buy last time, right? I'm sure they've come down in price, right? All right.
anyway,
Well, there's always something, whether it's illness or internet or something. Like, I think this is the universe trying to tell us, do we not need to do a podcast? Is that what's happening here?
well, it's all right. Just testing our resilience, right?
That's exactly, yes, we're resilience testing. Yeah. It's funny. It's like I always joke, I'm trying to create a term that tech check is probably still the leader in the clubhouse, but like you're going to get on a Zoom call for a meeting like this and you think I'm at 9:30 I'm just going to pop on, but you're like no, 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 like my headset's not working or the camera's not right or you got to have a couple minutes
Yeah,
to,
yeah, you actually. It's
to do
interesting. I
but
was actually thinking the same. I was kind of, I was actually ready to pop in around 9:15. I was like, maybe I felt like that was too late,
yeah.
just to make sure everything is for all right. And so,
Well, I think for me, invariably, it's always like you do Zoom and then it wants you to, oh, there's a software update. Like, okay, well, is it going to work for the next hour? At least I'll do it when I'm done. But if I got to update it before, well, I should have started early. It's like that kind of stuff that drives you nuts. So,
yeah, yeah, I agree.
um, oh well. All right. Um, well, I'm still here in my 720p glory right there. So my harsh lighting is not quite flattering, like you got a more of a soft glow and I've got these hard fluorescents just on me,
Yeah.
everything's
Okay.
white.
So you're in your office, right? Okay, you can see the
Yeah.
background. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's why I had to remember to like, okay, I need to get things off my desk or from here. Like, I don't want people seeing like how the sausage is made, right? But, not that there's any sausage, right? There's no sausage. That's about, there's not even sausage.
Yeah,
We can't even have sausage out of this. It's like, no,
yeah,
it's,
100%. Your business is doing all right?
yeah, I've got like Hayden, who you've talked to,
Yes.
right? And Lars, my younger brother, who started April 1. They are like, we've never really had producers, which we call them in our industry, which is like, look, all you do is sell. Don't account manage. Try not to talk to current customers. Just go out and find new customers. I never had that model because to me, training producers is like some work out and some don't, and the failure rate's high enough. You're like, I don't want to mess with it. It's fine, just slow, steady growth off me. But now it's like, look, Hayden and Lars both have good personalities for sales. Hayden especially will go call on anybody. Like he spent a couple weeks during the summer selling, longer than that actually, selling DIY home security to people in Montana. who, when they answer the door, they got a shotgun at you. You're like, okay, well, that's their DIY security
Man,
is the shotgun,
seriously,
right?
that's I always uh, there you go,
Yep, almost here.
Christian. Actually, when people knock on the door and I see people doing that, I mean, I always like, man, it's actually a dangerous
It
job.
seems like it is now. It's so infrequent. And how often is someone knocking on the door like a good thing? Like, oh wow, I actually needed that. Thank
Yeah,
you
yeah,
for
yeah.
dropping this off, right? Now it doesn't work like that. It's like now it's just it's serial killer is always the word knocking at the door, you know. So
Christian, you're back.
I'm trying.
It says that because I have the admin dashboard, it says that you have the Riverside open in two browsers. You got to close one of them.
Let me close that one. Yeah.
Yes. And honestly, if you have an issue, I was just telling Mark, I've had I've had many. Uh,
oh, there he goes. He left again.
he's proven to be a true attorney, tech savvy.
Totally, yes. Tech savvy as all attorneys are, right?
Yeah,
You know.
it's like still writing in paper, pencil, tracking time so that nobody can
Yep.
see what the hell they do. So, oh my God. So,
Well, I'll say this: our laundry list on I thank you, appreciate you sending the list of potential questions here. It's like it's long. I'm going like, are we going to get through half of this? Like,
yeah,
because
maybe,
we're going to talk.
yeah, maybe half.
We, yeah. So if you want to make sure we hit high points,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
your
yeah,
favorite questions, you let me know because
yeah,
you
yeah,
know me, I'll talk about whatever. So
yeah, absolutely. So, Christian, can you say a few words just to make sure you're
Okay,
coming
I'm,
on?
I'm back, and I'm not going to touch anything on my computer.
Perfect. Sounds great. All right.
Okay.
no promises, right?
So, for 11:30, so I'll just jot it down. Um, all right. All right, guys. So, I know, welcome to the show. Seems like, Mark, the glowing introduction I gave you really upset your younger
Yes.
cousin, Christian. And he proved that he's not as cool as you, right? Just by,
Yeah.
just by
Yeah.
dropping off.
His lack of IT knowledge clearly has proven that coolness didn't flow
I've
that far
regained my
down the family
I've
tree.
regained my composure. I'm back.
Okay, good,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, he actually proved that he's an attorney, right? He's very tech savvy. So, okay, all right, let's get rolling here, guys. So, there's so many different places where we can start, right? But let's start with the burning question here, right? Uh, Texas Longhorns, right? You guys are both Texas Longhorns. What's your prediction for the next season? I know, unfortunately, you guys didn't make it to the CFP playoffs this season. Next season prediction, Arch Manning. What's your take on that? Let's go with Mark first.
Well, I was going to say I was going to defer my time to the honorable gentleman on this side of my podcast here because I am admittedly a fair weather Longhorn fan because I feel like we have enough money to buy a championship, and why we don't win every year, it's what are our funds going to? But I think Christian's opinion is probably more knowledgeable about mine this year and next and the year after. So Christian, you have my time.
No, I appreciate it. Now we spent a lot of that money this past weekend, um, getting commitments from the top running back and top receiver, which we really needed receivers, and it put us at the number one transfer portal class, I believe. And I think I heard we spent $40 million on it. So the
Oh,
money came out.
bargain. Yeah.
So Arch has people to throw to now. And so if anybody can block for him, we should be in good shape.
Well, honestly, in the new NIL era, Texas should be in contention every single season just because, rich alumni, right? So, good stuff. Good stuff, guys. Let's get rolling to the meat of the show here. So, Mark and Christian, obviously, I've known you guys for a long time. Mark, I still vividly remember the first conversation I had. I just started Think Power Solutions,
Yep.
and I wanted commercial insurance. You guys were giving me on the personal insurance side, right? And I called you and say, hey, can I cancel this in a month if this company doesn't work out, right?
Yeah, all your confidence. Yes.
My confidence. And then the rest is history. The company grew, obviously, beyond my wildest imagination. And here we are in round two, right, with Cairo. So for listeners who may just think of lawyers and insurance agents or risk management advisors as just boxes check, right? How would you describe your role, ideal role, the relationship with an entrepreneur who's trying to get things off the ground, right? Because honestly, I've been in so many birthday parties where somebody comes and says, "Hey, I'm an insurance agent," right? But there's more to it. It is such an important piece of the puzzle, and you don't realize it until bad things happen, right? Which obviously has happened in the course of running my companies, right? So can you get started on that note, Mark?
Sure. No, I absolutely. It's weird because it was our grandfather and grandmother who started Frederiksen and Frederiksen back in 1949 out of their living room, basically here in Dallas. And so we're 75 plus years old as an agency, but it's kind of weird, like what's the continual thread through that, and a lot of it's like relationships, like just being there to help. We've got our logo was like the Danish Viking ship, and so because of that, the verbs I use what we do for our customers is we navigate and we advocate. So for the insurance world, it's like there's a lot of questions, and AI is smart, but there's a reason like insurance agents exist. And part of it's to help them navigate through like, okay, I think I need this, but how do I find it and what does this do, and evaluate those options. But then advocate as well for us, like we're trying to put our best foot forward for all of our insurance company underwriters to give us the best rate and terms they can. And so therefore, like there's a sales aspect of that, but at the same time, you're trying to sell our clients to our underwriters. So it's like, so those terms is what we use the most. Navigate and advocate seems to encapsulate, I think, best what we do for our best clients that,
navigate, advocate. And honestly, I've had many conversations with you where you've advised me on things to do. And one of the key aspects of, what you do is also an independent agent, right?
Yes.
Honestly, I have some good friends who own Allstate agencies and things like that, right? Can you explain to the listeners what is the difference and why an independent agency is better for an entrepreneur, for the customer at the end of the day?
Well, I mean, better's relative. An independent agency, what it allows us to do, instead of being tied to one insurance company, the luxury that we have is like we've got multiple insurance companies to shop on our customers' behalf. So it makes it easy for us if one of our insurance companies decides that Texas is just another pin on the map and we don't like Dallas because it hails there, and so we're going to shut down here. Well, I have another company to go to if we need it, and that's on the personal side. Commercial side, you never know who's competitive on what industry and things like that. So it's a great luxury to have when it's like we can keep the customer and they can know that they don't have to share their information with 5 or 6 different agents just to get a lay of the land on what the market's doing.
Yeah,
and
that's a beautiful way to put it, and a great example as well, because I don't know the exact insurance companies, but some of them are both in California because of the wildfires, and it could happen to any region by any provider at the end of the day. So that's great explanation there. Let's move on to Christian here. So Christian, one of the things I've done almost always, let me take out the word almost, always, is a contract comes in, kick it out to you, also kick it out to Mark. We get his inputs from the insurance side, your inputs obviously from the legal side. We try to keep the red lines to the minimum, but at the same time, we try to get the most important terms that are critical for us, right? So having said that baseline, what is an ideal relationship between a business counsel like yourself, a risk management advisor like Mark, and an entrepreneur like myself, right? So what is an ideal? And what does collaboration mean to you as a legal counsel?
I don't really use the word navigate and advocate like Mark does, but it seems to apply. I wish more clients would come and get lawyers involved early in the process. Oftentimes they come to me when all I can do is advocate for them because they're already in some kind of dispute or trouble that could likely have been prevented had we been brought in early in as you say, to review contracts and earlier on in the process so that we can limit any damage that we could foresee in the future. It's helpful to have the good line of communication with the insurance agent as well, so you can that's not my expertise, when you're reviewing a contract, I can do the legal, but if as long as I'm comfortable with that you're covered insurance-wise, it allows us to properly understand the risks we're taking in the contract too. But I think it's all about communication, and there's I have open communication obviously with Mark and you, and that's not just because he's my cousin, but there's other clients I don't have that ability to reach out to their insurance agent or to consult with them, and I think the relationship hurts as a result.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on that. So essentially, the key piece is be proactive, be engaged with your legal counsel early at the time of writing a contract. Don't hope for the best. That hey, everything will be all right, but then it doesn't always turn out to be that way, right? Even with the best planning, it doesn't always work out that way.
The first contract that they're going to hand you is not going to be favorable to you as a company. And you may not know, looking at it, what are the red flags initially until you've negotiated some of these contracts and you've been advised, and so you can sign something that could really harm you on down the road. However, if you consult with the lawyer up front, you may have to pay a little money, but it's an investment I think that's well worth it to protect yourself on the back end.
100%. The way I always say it is, you either pay for the risk down the road, or you buy down risk on the front end, right? What you're doing here with collaborating with a legal counsel, of course, you got to pay the legal fees, and with an insurance agent and getting the right mix of insurance for your company, you're actually buying down the risk for yourself as an entrepreneur and your company, so that helps you in the long run, right? Is that a good way to characterize that, Christian?
Exactly. You're minimizing the risk going forward to the best you can. You can't anticipate every scenario, but you just want to be as protected as you can be up front.
Got it. All right, let's move to Mark here. So, real world situation without naming customers, right? What are some of the situations where you felt like the customers didn't have the right coverage or did have the right coverage, right? There are so many different coverages out there. You got business interruption, professional liability, E&O, which is the same, right? Cyber, all these kind of things, right? Where did it come into play? Where did it protect the customer? I mean, I'm probably case example number one, right? There was that big issue that happened. But can you explain a little bit to our customers here?
I think the easy initial gotcha to identify for us is always like a lease. Like everyone who is, like to Christian's point, you get a landlord handing you a lease. Well, guess who's it's in favor of? It's in favor of the landlord, not the tenant. And we get in these situations very frequently where like there's an insurance paragraph, like what you're talking about. You give the contract to Christian and I look at the insurance section and Christian looks at the rest. But what we end up finding is that from a landlord-tenant standpoint, as an example, like there's things to insure that fall outside the insurance paragraph. Like there's a tenant responsibility section of every lease where it's like, oh, well, and Christian and I have picked up a mutual customer by someone who was a warehouse in the Dallas area. Windstorm blew off the AC units off the roof. And so therefore, the landlord said to the tenant, like, well, you're going to replace those, right? And the tenant thought, well, I thought that was yours to cover. It's like, no, look at your lease. And it wasn't in the insurance section. It was in the tenant's responsibility section, which is a completely different part of the lease. And I guess their agent had not looked at that, which a lot of agents, I've only learned to look at that by, experience, right? I wasn't a genius knowing like, oh, of course, let's look at this part first. But like, you start to identify those risks like, oh yeah, what are you going to do if those units are on, catch on fire, blown off the roof. Well, we want to insure those, right? So it's not just looking at that, the insurance paragraph, which is the easy part to do and a lot of times easy to fulfill, but it's just trying to find all the little gotchas. There's always a gotcha somewhere.
Yeah.
And like I said, to me, I'm like, look, I don't do my own taxes. Like, I want to hire a CPA to help me with the gotchas. Like, why wouldn't you bring an attorney into the mix to look at that for you? That's their job. Like, isn't that worth to Christian's point, isn't that worth the investment? Like, why would you not do that?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
100%, especially when you're dealing with sophisticated customers.
Yeah.
Who, it could be large customers like the ones that Cairo has, or it could be sophisticated landlords, right, who have multiple properties. Clearly, they have a legal counsel, if not an army of lawyers with them, right? So might as well have the right advice on your side. So, Christian, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, Mark's, just to do it up front, the best, I mean, as you said, Mark, you learn from experience. And that's just the way it's true in the legal field. It's true just as a business owner. You're going to make mistakes at the beginning. And it's Mark and I's job to try to just to minimize those, and to get you off and running. We can't prevent everything, but it's going to get you off to a better start and an investment well worth it. Got it.
Okay. Let's stick with Christian here. So, every company has an operating agreement, right? Many people don't really pay much attention to it on the front end because they're excited about getting started on a new venture and things like that, hoping everything will be all right, right? That seems to be the theme of the discussion so far here. But, there comes a time when partners disagree, and one wants to go one way, the other wants to go a different way, right? A long-winded way to ask is operating agreements for business owners, entrepreneurs. What's your take on that, Christian? And where have you seen that become very useful, right? When there are oftentimes disagreements between partners.
Unfortunately, Hari, I've seen it worse, the worst case scenario, more than the best case scenario, in terms of people don't have that built into their operating agreement about how am I going to separate from the partnership, or they go into this business with a friend or with relatives, and we're never going to need this withdrawal procedure. I'm not really concerned about tiebreaker situations, and inevitably it comes back to bite them. That's one of the worst ones I ever saw was involving three brothers who all got crossways with each other, and they ended up in court for 3 years. Jeez. Trying to fight over ownership of the company. And so it's important to establish those withdrawal procedures. You may not need them. You just don't want to have 50-50 deadlocks. You want to, who's making the decisions, and to be sure it's well documented. You can, even talking to a friend or a relative, you can have a handshake deal, but that's not enforceable. And people forget those when it comes to when you get crossways with each other. So just to document and pay attention to the operating agreement up front, because that's going to be controlling. And for example, if a member dies and you've got now a wife who's trying to become involved in the business, you need to have mechanisms in place that either allow or disallow that, and to buy out the wife or husband or whatever. So that's all important stuff at the very, very beginning.
Of setting up a business. You're right. You're right about that. So Mark, from an insurance standpoint, right? Setting up a business, just like Christian is saying, you're setting up an operating agreement. Now you're setting up the different types of insurance that is needed. What is non-negotiable, right? What is absolutely needed for somebody to get started, like I did back in 2013? Sure. And how would you scale it as, let's say, the business progresses from 0 to 10 to 25 employees, and then, to 50 employees, and so on and so forth? Or maybe in today's day and age of AI, to be honest, right? Maybe it doesn't scale employee-wise, but it can scale exponentially revenue-wise. Just the nature of these businesses have changed and evolved over a period of time. Right, because some of these businesses are what they call as magic businesses, right? They can scale exponentially, software businesses. So what's your take on that? What's your experience, and what's your advice?
I think we usually keep in mind on the risk management side, which includes insurance, is that our risk management program needs to grow with the company and adapt with the company, because when you start off, like a lot of times, like, okay, we get to these situations where why are we buying insurance? And are we buying it to make a landlord happy? Are we buying it to make a client happy and check those boxes so we can get the work, so we can get the revenue and then grow from there? But I try not to start from there. Like, those are obvious reasons like why we have to have insurance.
Yeah.
But
Oftentimes, honestly, just to jump in without breaking a chain of thought, oftentimes an entrepreneur starts, really, that is the primary reason, right?
it is,
It's like, hey, I don't know anything about it. I mean, honestly, I started out that way, right? It's like, hey, I want to get this contract, make money, right?
Yep.
So
That's exactly it.
you're right.
Yeah. And so we start with that, but where we try to avoid that is like, look, like that's definitely a factor, because we got to make the client happy, otherwise we can't get the work. But I always talk to my customers, not always, but like the typical advice I give them is like, look, when we start this process, let's risk manage this, because we get that you're going to have a client or a landlord that says you must have these policies, but everything else that's your discretion, like, let's talk through this. The risk management process will basically identify the risks and then decide what you want to do about it. Do you want to mitigate it? Do you want to transfer it? Do you want to avoid it? Do I want to duplicate it? Let's do all these other things that are in our control. Whatever's left, then we can decide, do we want to insure it or not? But I will advise my 4 nonprofit customers all the time. The advice when we look at this holistically from a risk management standpoint is to say, what if we just acted as if insurance didn't exist? We have an alternate universe where insurance wasn't a thing. Like, no one knew what it was. And so what would you do if you still had your mission, whether it's a for-nonprofit business or even a personal lines customer? Like, it's a little bit different, but the business side of it is, okay, would you have that charity golf tournament? Would you bring the bounce house here? Would you hire the person with the questionable driving record? Well, and to me, all this circles back to policies and procedures that you established up front. And frankly, will you mute Christian's thing real quick? I don't want him to hear this, but like, sometimes the attorney is the most important part of that aspect of, like, you got to help identify the risks and contractually get your way out of them, or set up a handbook or the rules or whatever you want to call it to say, look, this is our operating procedures for how we're going to run the company. Then we have that established. Then let's look at insurance and figure out, where do we need to sprinkle the insurance to take care of the things that the clients or the landlords are not requiring us to carry.
Yeah.
Because that's where the strategy part comes in, because then we say, what deductibles do we need? How much coverage? How much coverage do you think you need? Just because your client says this amount doesn't mean we think that's appropriate, but we should talk that through. But that whole conversation should exist before we get to the part where we say, let's buy insurance, because if we don't set that part up, we're going to get bad quotes, because we're going to have poor procedures or no procedures. So
eloquently put. I really want to sprinkle in my own personal experience that I actually developed the two of you all here, right? Fleet insurance, super expensive, and it became exponentially expensive over a period of time until it stabilized. So the way we navigated that was exactly how you put it, which is to put in a policy that is enforceable, right? We worked with Christian, we worked with our labor council and you to come up with a very tight fleet policy where, hey, if you had this driving record, you cannot drive a company vehicle. Or if this happens, you cannot drive a company vehicle, right? What that did was it gave the underwriters confidence that we are running a tight ship, right? Yep. And, didn't magically, bring the cost down by 50%, but it clearly gave us some, pricing edge because of the confidence we gave the underwriters, right? So, a real world example, at the end of the day, the second piece of what you said, I just want to kind of put it in an entrepreneur's perspective. It's like, what is the risk that you can live with, right? Yep. If you're a company that is $50 million in revenue, super highly profitable, do you really need a $50,000 deductible? Can you live with a $500,000 deductible, right? Yep. That is, you'll get a much better quote. But then you got to have the confidence that you can actually manage that risk effectively. You need to have good health and safety programs. You need to have good cyber programs and things like that. So I know it's a long-winded way to explain it, but I really wanted to kind of address that as well. Would you agree with me on what I just?
Oh yeah, I do agree. We're all long-winded. Oh wait, that's not what you wanted me to agree with? Okay, yeah, but yes, the short answer is 100%. If you don't identify the risk, whether it's Christian identifying the risks in a contract, or you deciding like, look, these are the risks that we can live with when we toss the keys to someone driving one of our vehicles on our behalf, like you gotta get that comfort level. We call it risk tolerance. What are you willing to live with? And like again, from our standpoint, like we don't want our clients to have the claims because we know what our industry is going to do is that we're going to pay the claim, hopefully, but then we're going to charge you for 3 to 5 years for that claim. And like, does that math make sense? It's not profitable. It's diverting you from your mission, which is, whatever that is for that company. And but it's a process, and it's not fun per se. It's not sexy. And if you just want to focus on premium, like you can, and most of the time that works because the odds are most people won't have a claim. But the most successful entrepreneurs are the ones that I do feel like they will dedicate the appropriate time to the risk management process, which includes reviewing contracts and employee handbooks and the policies and procedures that you need in place, and get the experts when you need them to help guide you through it and share best practices.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. By the way, my brother who listens to the show, he just said, you need to talk less and let your guests talk more. So you just, okay. So Christian, Mark, do you want to say something?
Oh, why would I say anything? No, of course not. I'm here to listen. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Christian. Let's go down to, I know in our contracts, we always try to get Texas law, right? Over the last 12, 13 years, we've always tried to do that, right? Any disputes, let's address it in the state of Texas, right? Let's kind of go into incorporation. All my companies incorporate in the state of Texas, but many people do incorporate in Delaware. In light of this Elon Musk compensation, which has since been revoked, I believe he's getting his compensation, right? How would you address that? What is a good state to incorporate in? Texas, Delaware, Nevada? Although we're all biased to Texas, what's your advice to entrepreneurs here?
People prefer Delaware, and they always have. And Delaware has established business courts that they've seen every scenario. And so it's a predictability that if you're going to apply Delaware law and something happens, what's likely to happen if a lawsuit gets filed or you have to go to court. And people prefer that. Some people. Delaware's got strong limited liability protection it's important to members of LLCs or that's why you're setting up the entity, is you want to be sure that you're not exposed individually, and Delaware is very, very strong in that, and that probably goes back to the predictability and the history there, and they do reward companies that form in Delaware even though they're not located in Delaware. You get some tax benefits there in Delaware for that, but Texas is becoming more attractive to form your company in as well. Of course, no state income tax, and they offer a lot of franchise tax exemptions for smaller entities, under 2.5 million revenue, that kind of, which is kind of important. And it's really good. Texas is good for the more regionally based businesses. I prefer Texas. Obviously more familiar with Texas law, and if you go to Delaware, you're going to have to probably hire a Delaware attorney to help you out there, which is bring more expense and bringing him or her up to speed. But I think there has been recently, I say in the past 2 or 3 years, people wanting to do Delaware law. Even though I recommend Texas, they said I just prefer Delaware, and I don't know if that's a comfort level or what, but you're not going to get in trouble either way. But I think Texas is becoming a lot more attractive.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I mean, we've incorporated in Texas, but honestly, Cairo is a Delaware registered company.
Right.
When we spun out Delaware, when we spun out Cairo from Think Power, we actually incorporated in Delaware. So, all right,
you can always You can always start as a Texas company and convert to a Delaware entity on down the road if your company's growing and you're bringing in a lot more venture capital, whatever's happening with the company, you can convert to Delaware law, and that probably would be in your best interest to be the subject of Delaware law as you grow and you expand beyond the initial stages, formation stages.
So to get started, hey, if you're a Texas-based entrepreneur, register in Texas. Texas is becoming very business friendly. I believe that Texas is incorporating business courts and things like that, right?
Well, Texas is trying to. They don't do as good a job as Delaware. They do now have a business court, but the jurisdiction level, the amount of revenue and damages and dispute that it takes to get into that court is pretty significant. It's not something you can take your minor $1 million dispute to. You got to be up a little higher, significantly higher. So they're limited in their resources, I think, right now, and I think you're going to see that expand because I think people like the idea of having the business court who would be like Delaware's already long done, establish, this is the predictability of disputes and what's going to happen if we go forward.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's good to have competition, right? Good to have competition in business jurisdiction as well. So, all right. So, Mark, I have my list of lines of insurance, right? Commercial package, business interruption, general liability, commercial automobile, workers' comp, umbrella, professional liability, cyber liability, employment practices liability and fiduciary, D&O, and then you got the health insurance, right? Dental, vision, accident insurance, hospital indemnity, all kinds of stuff, right? When you advise an entrepreneur, where would we get started? What is constantly underbought and people who regret it later on down the road?
Probably underbought these days is probably the employment practices liability coverage.
Before we go any further, explain to the audience what is employment practices.
Yeah, it's basically your hiring and firing coverage, your workplace torts, when an employee feels they were discriminated, harassed, wrongful termination. It's the internal claims that arises from just the joy of having employees. And it goes hand in hand with the D&O coverage, but you get a lot of basically privately held companies who think, well, I don't need D&O because they don't have a big board, it's tightly held. They don't see the need for it. And for the most part, they're right, even though there are situations that it's no, you totally could use this. But from that standpoint, it's the joys of growing a staff, basically. And sometimes you make a mistake and hire the wrong person. And then a lot of times you haven't followed procedures or didn't have it in place, but you say, look, I need to move on from this person to do it right. Well, and then depending on the jurisdiction, how much protection is that state going to give that employee versus the employer. And every employment practice liability claim is kind of a guilty before presumed innocent from the employer standpoint, because the employee is alleging a tort, you did something wrong, and now we have to go and defend and say, no, we didn't do it wrong, we did it right, and here's how we did it right. And in every, insurance scenario, all of our underwriters think well, of course we have a checklist and we've done all these things. And we've got our employment handbooks that have been reviewed by a labor attorney that have all the right things in there as well. And those are questions on the application. And a lot of times the customer's like, yeah, I have it, but I haven't really looked at it in a while. But again, it circles back to the idea, you can always buy the insurance for these things, but when you see the questions on the applications, whether it's employment practices or cyber liability or crime coverage is one we didn't mention, of employee dishonesty, of sometimes just having the procedures in place, you don't need the insurance, whether the claim is likely to happen or not, but then you have the headache. Well, if we have a claim, an employment practices claim, because someone says that the employer discriminated against them, well, the insurance company is going to hire an attorney, and that attorney is going to say, hey, Hari, what tools do you have for me to defend this claim with? What have you got? And so that's why I go back to what if insurance didn't exist? Would you be hiring an attorney off your own dime? And you still need to give them the tools. So we need to develop the tools first. But I think employment practice liability is definitely a policy where you get a critical mass, hey, you get 10 or more employees, and then the math starts making sense. But regardless of the number of employees and the math, it's you want to start with the procedures at employee number one.
Yeah.
And then we can grow from there. You can always buy any insurance policy, any coverage at any time. The fastest growing is cyber because people are realizing that, okay, more stuff is in the cloud. I have a greater exposure, whether it's an internal exposure or third-party data exposure. But if you look at a cyber application, I'll just say, look at that first. Just do what the application says, even if we don't get quotes. Just if you're not doing what the application is asking you to do, review it with your expert, IT person, attorney, labor attorney, whoever, and go through that, and then maybe you don't need the insurance.
Yeah.
Because you can always worry about like, oh, I don't have that, I don't have that, I don't have that, but you don't have an unlimited budget to buy insurance. We wish you did.
Yeah.
And for a lot of companies that makes sense. That's a risk management plan. But like when you're starting off with as entrepreneurs, like you're going to get the clients throwing all that stuff at you. Got to have these things to get this work. Okay, I get it. But after that, there's no money left. I'd like to be able to eat, and pay my rent, right? And then give it to the insurance company. So you get those scenarios. We talk a lot about that on the for nonprofit side, about just what's appropriate at this stage of your company's growth, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. As well as the for-profit side, right?
Yes, exactly. Both sides. It works.
Yeah.
Both of yes. Absolutely.
So honestly, the cyber is a big piece of it because I remember as the company was growing, it was like one of our customers came and said we needed $10 million coverage, right, on cyber.
Yeah. Why 10? They just needed it, right?
Oh my God, that cost us an arm and a leg, right?
Yes.
I don't know, $50,000-$60,000, right?
Yeah.
For something that we knew we were never going to use because we had good, hopefully never going to use, right? And we never used it. But it's serious stuff. I mean, it's not cheap, and you got to make sure you have the right process and procedures in place. So
yeah, and we want to, just like Christian is used to negotiate contracts, we want to help negotiate those limits. Like, because why was it 10 million? Like, why did they feel they needed 10 based on what services we were providing them? Maybe they were justified in asking for it. Maybe that's just a template agreement that every vendor they have, they just ask for 10. Like, but why don't ask for the exception? Why not? Because it's just additional money. Like a landlord saying you got to have these policies and limits in place. Well, it's just additional rent. Well, then let's ask for less. But we also understand that our part of this may not be the preeminent or the primary need. Like the insurance part may not trump something else in the contract that is more valuable to you. But we at least want to give you the options and let you decide what's important. Do I want to argue the insurance point here and the limits, or do I want to horse trade for something else? Yeah. And that's why I think like a good agent can help provide on the insurance side, where Christian can do the same for like a contract. It's like, look, I can redline this. These are your options. How hard do we want to fight for these things?
Well, honestly, at the end of the day, when your customer says, "Hey, no, I'm now going to reduce my requirement," you can always say, "This is going to cost me serious money. Would you be willing to, pay more for these, right?"
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it comes from the bottom line. And a lot of people don't realize insurance doesn't. Prices don't go down. In fact, it goes up. I mean, you kind of help me understand that. It's like because as your company grows, you kind of leave the potential for more lawsuits from the last several years. So the risk management from that standpoint, the insurance agencies goes up, and same for cyber and all these kind of things, right? So you got to plan for it. And many contracts require you to have an insurance 3-4 years after you've completed the last project. So you have to really bake it in your pricing. And these things really need to be well thought out.
No, that's 100% one of the gotchas we help identify to say, look, once the project's done, you're still paying for it per se because they want you to carry those limits past that project expiration. But it's 100% correct. When you're focusing on, I just got to have the work, it's one thing. But you need to be able to walk away from the work if it doesn't benefit you for the future. We want the from your risk management budget to be appropriate for the size of the company and your revenue. We don't want it to be inappropriate because it's been affected by a claim, which is, I renewed it this year. The next renewal I get, the premiums increased 200%. Well, I can't pass that along to my client. That was something I could control though. And so you just want to focus on what you can control
Yeah.
from the get-go, and then make sure that if we need our insurance, it's there when we need it from a catastrophic standpoint. But if I can void the small claims, the frequency part of it, and just eliminate the frequency, focus on the severity. Those are another couple terms we use a lot: frequency versus severity.
Yeah.
Is it better to have one big claim or small claims? And depending what day you find an underwriter, they'll give you a different answer, but we don't want either.
Yeah.
It's like the short answer is we don't want neither one of those. So let's figure out how to avoid that as much as we can.
You love working with underwriters, don't you? You love underwriters. Right?
Well,
You're literally married to one.
I'm married to one, so be careful how you say. I'm sure she's monitoring this call right now. I know what I'm allowed to say, but underwriters, frankly, are our partners, and our good underwriters make things easy for us, which therefore translates to the entrepreneur. That's why you want to find a good agent that, a lot of agents are using the same insurance companies, but it is the relationship we have with our underwriters as well. You have a good underwriter, they will help us help the client grow the same way hopefully my advice is, or Christian's advice does too. So they're definitely a key part of this conversation that the client never talks to, but they're a partner for us. They're almost like angel investors in a way, because they're helping us get coverage that we need for the best terms possible. And best terms possible doesn't mean premium. It means coverage first, then the best premium for what that coverage is being provided. So,
honestly, I've never heard anyone say that underwriters are angel investors. That's a first.
I'm being paid to say that. Where's all my insurance company logos to say, right? Yeah. But I think the analogy is appropriate. It doesn't seem like they're angels most of the time. I get it, but the good ones are. I promise.
Understand that. So, all right. So, Christian, contracts, right? We've negotiated multiple contracts where you advised us, right? What are 2 or 3 clauses that routinely cause most hard money? Any business, construction, obviously you focus on that. I mean, you've advised me on software contracts. What is something that entrepreneurs need to focus on? What do you help them focus on?
I don't think I have to tell them, but number one, the payment terms. You need to be clear as to when you're going to get paid, and understand that you can negotiate that back to a more reasonable period. I also don't like the cross offset provisions. Those are provisions that if you have multiple contracts with the group and one of the contracts goes bad, then they can withhold paying you on all your other contracts. And that I try to cross those out and negotiate those out as often as possible, because I've seen people really pay the price for that. If you can, you're going to limit the indemnification provisions. Texas does a good job. They passed a statute that helps you, so you don't have to necessarily negotiate it all out. That like you're not responsible for somebody else if they're the sole negligent party. But those are the ones that you want to limit as much as possible, and those are oftentimes, especially in the construction context, those are the ones that are, those are 2 pages of indemnity provisions. Those are the kind of the main ones. You can really focus on dispute resolution too. I like to have that pretty concrete in terms of preference to maybe go to a mediation if a dispute arises before you get into arbitration or a lawsuit. It could save the parties money. It could get the thing dispute handled a lot quicker. And so to be sure that those mechanisms are in there, and that it's not just the mechanism requiring mediation, is how are you going to pick the mediator? Or how do you ultimately select the arbitrator on down the road? What construction or alternative dispute resolution rules apply? Those are kind of the main ones that I focus on, at least going forward. Again, as you say, you can't change the entire agreement. You try to minimize the red lines because a lot of times you're not negotiating from a position of power.
Yeah.
But so, you can't just come back and you don't have the ability to say, I want to change this entire contract.
No, 100%. Payment terms, super important. And if you're negotiating with a vendor, you can also negotiate payment terms, right? You can pay a little slower. That also helps with your cash flow. Offset terms, I know we've had that in our contracts, and you've helped us at least ask the customer, hey, can you take it out? Dispute resolution, indemnification. And another aspect of it is intellectual property protection, right?
Right.
You helped us protect it quite often, right? It's like, hey, intellectual property is ours, because a lot of contracts says, if you work on our project and if you use this software, that software is ours, right? Code is ours, right? So all those things also comes into play, right?
And one other factor would be a non-solicitation provision. Depending on the nature of your business, you want to protect your personnel and your people from getting just hired away from you and going to work for the people that you are providing services to.
Yes, yes, that happens quite often. Frankly, that happens all the time, and despite having the non-solicitation, but at the very least, you can tell your customer, listen, I'm being nice to you. I'll let you guys have this person. At least builds up some brownie points and things like that, right? So no, I agree with you. We've had it on almost all our contracts there. So that's fantastic. So Mark, let's kind of get into health insurance a little bit, right? You helped me get started on health insurance at Think Power.
Sure.
And it is a big piece of how I attracted a lot of good employees early on, right? And then we scaled it over a period of time, added different types of health insurance aspects, right? I mean, dental, vision, all these kind of things, right? Explain to an entrepreneur all those different things, right? I've got a list of things here: HSA versus non-HSA. Then you have all these ancillary plans: dental, vision, life, AD&D, voluntary life, STD, LDD, LTD, accident insurance, hospital indemnity, EAP, all these kind of different things.
Yeah, we love our acronyms, don't we?
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
And then you got to go, Siri, what does this mean? And it's like, and now my Siri is lighting up right over here. And
I'm going to ask you about AI anyway, but go for it. How would you get started? I know you're a big proponent of HSA, and we got started on HSA way back
Sure.
in the day, right? Super helpful. So why don't you get started?
Yeah, I think the benefits conversation overall is definitely one of those growth conversations where once you cross that line to say, look, we are crossing the Rubicon, we are going to be a shop that provides benefits, because no one wants to roll it back once you provide it, because your employees have that expectation, like, oh, well, you were providing it before, why are we rolling it back? And to your point, Hari, like, we've got to attract the best employees we can. For a lot of employees, that's a critical part of their compensation package, yet we forget it's a compensation package part where it's like, look, if I didn't have to buy you health insurance, I could just give you that money, and it's a lot regardless of the size of the company. Like, health insurance is expensive. It's been expensive forever. Like, my dad, second generation Frederiksen here, Christian's uncle, wrote an op-ed piece to a Dallas newspaper back in 1993 about the cost of health insurance, for example. And Washington, to my knowledge, is not coming to save the day on that. Like, so you have to, it's one of those things where we decide, look, we are going to earmark that, X percent of our budget that we're going to provide this benefit. And then we get into the mechanics of, well, what do you want to provide? Because, you start with health insurance coverage, but then you have people like, well, what about dental? And what about vision? And then, oh, what about, well, we want to be a good employer. I want to give people some life coverage as well, and maybe some disability coverage, whether it's short or long term. But all of a sudden you start building an entire package, including EAP, the employee assistance stuff. You're like, whoa, okay, I don't have unlimited budget for this still. So it's like, so again, it's definitely a discretionary, we're custom making a benefits plan for you. Like, when a client asks me from a health insurance standpoint, I have my traditional PPO and I have my health savings account options, which one should I pick? I can spend hours talking about why I think a health savings account or a high deductible health plan, which lets you have a health savings account, why that's the best bet for most employees, from a never use it, catastrophic use it, in between use it. But when I go do a open enrollment and talk to people about the plan, there's definitely a educational standpoint where people have that comfort level of a PPO, but it's inherently more expensive and maybe not what's best for that employee. but it takes time and education to talk through it. Now, again, the partners on that end of it, like I love the resources that the HSA banks provide to help employers explain to their employees how to maximize the benefit out of it. I think people think they got to be a CPA to maximize an HSA plan and the account. I mean, accountants certainly know that, and every accountant knows, like, oh, I get the math on that. I'm going to do that immediately. But the HSA banks is your bank in that regard, and you got to get educated. It's all education on that.
I mean, HSA ultimately, the money is yours.
Yes. It's not use it or lose it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not like the
Yep.
FSA where you got to use it or lose it. Number one. Number
Yep.
two is it stays with you when you
It stays,
change
yeah.
employer.
It stays with you. You can use it on not things that are not just health insurance. Like any small business, I'll say, look, maybe you don't need dental and vision. If you have a high deductible plan and then offer the HSA account to the employees, they can use that money to pay for dental and vision.
Yeah.
With the idea still being like, we are still trying to help our the employees be good consumers. That's the other thing we got to remember. We're
Educated
picking an
consumers of healthcare. because
Exactly
we don't
right.
know
Like
what the hell we're paying for.
Yeah, right. We don't want them out of the office because, like, well, I'm having to wait to go see a doctor 50 miles away because you gave me a crappy health plan that didn't have any local doctors in my network. It's like, but that costs money. And so it's still a conscious decision by the employer to say, are benefits important that I've reached that point? I have a critical mass of employees that I can't grow and scale until I provide a benefit. But then what does that benefit look like?
Yeah. Honestly, from a insurance standpoint, one of the key, I mean, you're hitting a very important point, going 50 miles away to see a doctor, right? I mean, candidly, it all happens more often than what we appreciate on this discussion, right? But, one of the things that I've always tried to do is, hey, if my employees are focused on healthcare or lack thereof, they're not focused on serving the customer, right?
Yep.
Which invariably affects your business, right? It becomes your business at the end of the day. So how can you actually really dive into this complex topic, understand it, and honestly help your employees understand it, make the right decisions, and give them something that is important to the business, right? You really does affect the business if you don't have good benefits. Keep going, Mark.
No, and 100% agree. And we understand our role. Like, there's bad agents, always bad insurance agents, but most of us are good, here for good at least. But that's the kind of advice. Like, look, it's, in a way, we look at this, you're a free agent every year because you renew every year in most of these policies. So we're not locking into something forever per se. You may be locked in, like, look, I know I'm going to provide a benefit, but what does that benefit package look like? That can adapt year to year. You don't have to look forward to this conversation every year with your agent, but you want to have the conversation every year with your agent to say, look, we've grown. Our expectations from our employees are now this. But I realize I've got a limited budget and I can't just spend all of our revenue on benefits. And so you got to find those balances, the risk tolerance levels of the employer. Like, look, I will do this. And some obviously have to be super generous based on the competitive industry that they're in. And we want to help them still tailor that plan to what best meets their needs. And some you get like these small nonprofits, for example, like, look, I'm not as confident about my revenue sources since they are foundations and the government and individual donors that kind of see this as a year-to-year proposition as well.
Yeah.
So you basically just want to guide them through it. Like I said, we want to navigate for them and say, here are your options.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what best meets your needs right now, and it may be different next year. And then if that is, we'll talk next year.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, some of the things is, right, the educating the employees piece becomes very critical because when I look at my own scenario, I kind of do the math. It's like, okay, $4,000 deductible is $1,000. $12,000 deductible is, I don't know, $500 a month, right?
Yep.
If I did the math, many times the extra deductible kind of washes with the lower premium that I'm paying or something like that, vice versa.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so it doesn't make really any sense. So you can actually put that money in your HSA account, have it for a rainy day, as opposed to, if you don't really need a health insurance, why would you buy something that you don't need? And we ended up contributing $300 a month or $400 a month, something like that, to our employees' HSA account, which essentially is their money. We're not paying it for premiums, but hey, they can use it even after they leave the company if ever there was a need for health insurance, right?
It's effectively was a bonus because to your point, it's their money. They can invest it. Their HSA bank will help them figure out how to maximize that tax-free dollar for them. But again, it's that can change for each company. Doing that math of like, why am I paying for such a low deductible applies to almost every insurance. Like if I'm not turning in a claim that low, why am I paying for a deductible that low? My strategy, my policy terms should match the strategy that I'm going to have. If someone's going to call me and I'm going to talk them out of turning in a small auto claim, well then why am I going to let them have a $500 deductible? You can't get out of a body shop between the parts and labor for under X amount anyway.
Yeah.
And I know the insurance underwriter will take that claim and use it against us, so to speak, for 3 to 5 years. It'll stay in our record. And over that time, we might pay more in premium than what the claim check we got.
Yeah.
And we can't know everything going forward, but we can take some of those simple strategies. Like I've used the term strategy more often from a risk management standpoint in the past few years than ever, because you have to basically because the premiums are going up, like, okay, well, I can't just afford just to pay for a low deductible, and it's not even appropriate for how my people are using the plan anyway.
Yeah.
We want to have those conversations.
100%.
Basically.
So, Christian, let me bring you into this super sexy conversation about health insurance, right? So, have you ever had a super high-end healthcare at low premium with zero deductible? What's your experience been on that?
No, I'm not. And I don't deal much with the health insurance plans, those type things. And I kind of defer that to the Marks of the world.
So. As a consumer, let me ask this to you from not as a legal counsel in this case, right, but as a consumer, right, and obviously as an employee as well, right? What's your take? What's your take on health insurance? In terms of how you make selections as an employee for your family and things like as a consumer, essentially.
Yeah, no, to be honest with you, I let my wife do it,
but that's a common. But honestly, you joke. That's what we hear. My spouse does it because there's always a lead spouse, right? That says, "Okay, I care more about this than you do." And then you're like, oh, what are we paying? I don't know. What's our deductible? That happens all the time.
Yeah, well, it happens. It's happened for 25 years here. But no, she knows better what the kids need, what kind of coverages, and what's going on. So she's the one that kind of runs that show for me.
Yeah, no. That's
so going to that point, I was going to say, so when we have an open enrollment, like a lot of times it's like you have the employees there, but sometimes it's the spouse that you want to participate because to Christian's point, they're the ones with the questions.
Yeah.
They're the ones seeing the doctor and arranging that, or not that they don't care more than the other spouse, the parent does, but like we know who's more invested in the decision.
Yeah.
And so, we have to keep that in mind too, that whatever we tell the employees, they may not be the decision maker on their own plan. They may be taking that information home and saying, these are the options. So you got to make sure that you kind of keep it on a layman's term enough, but then open enough, like if they have a question, be available to answer questions.
100%. No, honestly, I mean, Christian, what you said is actually 100% spot on, because all these different things that I just mentioned here, STD, LTD, all these kind of things, hospital indemnity, they all came through recommendations from somebody's spouse. It never came from an employee, right? Somebody said, hey, why don't you add STD? Why don't you add LTD? I believe somebody's wife was pregnant and they were like, hey, can we have hospital indemnity here? And I looked into it. We added that, right? So I think these are all things that, we joke, but it's actually super, super important. So that's good stuff there. So, gentlemen, is there anything that we missed? I know it's super high-level discussion here that we've had, but we still went in depth. We can always go deeper into insurance. Is there anything that we missed so far on the key aspect of insurance? But I was going to go into AI next. Anything else we need to talk about?
Well, I think we're good.
I think we've used all of our words already on the insurance. Isn't there a word count limit here? You pay for the extra plan. You need to pay for the extra plan when you put a couple Fredericksons in the room. We're going to use all the words. So
I actually, I want to ask about multi-plan, right, and plan administrators. Mark,
sure.
there's this big New York Times investigation about multi-plan and how they get paid, how, doctors don't get paid, the patients get screwed literally, but the multi-plan guys, they make a lot of money by giving supposedly discounts and things like that, right? So as a risk advisor, right, how can you help companies navigate those hidden industry issues out there, right?
Yeah, to me, that's always an example of there's always going to be these investigations that there's always some bad actors not doing the right thing and what's best for the customer. And I get from an insurance standpoint, holistically, all parts of insurance, when the premiums are where they are and how high they are, people are looking for alternatives. And and sometimes you're like, look, from my standpoint, you're like, there's no way someone can price that like that. They can't make money. It's too good to be true, but it's hard to talk your client out of it sometimes without basically digging into it to figure out like, look, is that what's best for me? Like, they're not all Ponzi schemes, but there's definitely scenarios where there's like, now some people are going to call every insurance company a bad actor, right? I get it, haha. But like, and we've earned the reputation. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's a reason I will always have a job.
There's a
So,
weekly Wall Street Journal article. It seems like they are
yes, there is. Yeah.
paid reporter on.
Yep, and they are right. That's the part of the problem. Like, there's always opportunities. Well, their insurance company's going wrong here, going wrong here. But that's where, like everything that you what you mentioned earlier, Harry, the education part of it. We at least want to steer people like, look, let's get the information on it. Let's look at it. It may work for you, but here's the questions that the clients don't know to ask. And that AI these days, as we get to that, might be able to tell you, but may not. And that's where the value of having a consultant like me or Christian or whatever, or like what you have done for your clients. It's like, you don't know what questions to ask, what's important. Like, I can see AIs telling me this, but like, I don't know how to evaluate it for what my company needs. And we certainly want to help them avoid the pitfalls and that like, oh man, it sounded too good to be true, but I had to investigate it and I did it. And a couple years later, they realized that was a catastrophe. Mark, why didn't you talk me out of it? Like, well, I mean, sometimes we can't predict the future, So it's like, that's definitely a scenario. What you're talking about is one where it's like, look, there's resources out there and there are agents with big companies and small companies. We're all agents. Like, find an agent that you trust, that you have a relationship with, that can help you navigate and find out these options and then go from there. Because you're always going to find a problem with an insurance company. Always, always.
Yeah.
And so that's always going to be there.
That's good. So, Christian, let's bring you in here, right? So, let's bring you into AI. So, 1 year down the road, am I going to talk to Christian Frederiksen, or am I going to talk to ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, XAI? What's your take? How is AI impacting your profession, legal profession? And obviously, Mark, you can go next.
You're always going to talk to a person, I think. You're going to be talking to me. Now, you may be reading some of my work product that's AI, and this AI generated that has really caught fire. In the past year, it was funny because you read it and it would say exactly what you wanted it to say, and you're ready to file it with the court. But then you actually check the legal authorities that were being cited, and they're all made up. Now, it's changed considerably since then. So yeah, I mean, I can submit this, but this is a case, Your Honor, that didn't exist. I mean, it says it's perfect language, but now it's gotten a lot better, and people, you can tell they're using it. I mean, people that I've dealt with before never wrote this well. They certainly do now. So all the written filings are going to be cleaned up, but someone's got to go into that courtroom and argue a case, or quite frankly, someone needs to build a relationship up front with the client. You can't do that over the computer. There's got to be a personal touch there, a human factor to it. So I think there's always going to be that Yes, more and more of the work is being generated, by these programs, and we're all getting trained in it. To be
Yeah.
sure, we know, and unfortunately, I mean, I guess fortunately, it saves us time. It does save us time, and it saves the clients money. But it is fortunate that they are becoming more. The programs are becoming more and more accurate, and you still have got to check everything.
Yeah.
You just can't trust it, and file it. Some people do, and they got in trouble for it. But it's like I said, it's getting a lot better, and so we are definitely going to be relying on it for the written portions of our practice.
It's good to be a litigator, I guess, right? You need to go into the courtroom and litigate at the end of the day, right? So,
Right.
but question, I was reading about the impact of AI on different professions, and one of the profound impacts is going to be on legal professions for exactly what you just said. And they were saying how it could actually fundamentally change how the business of law works, right? Instead of hourly billing, it could go into impact-based billing and things like that. What's your take on that?
No, I think it's going to affect even the billing, as you say. It has changed over the past year and a half, and it's become a lot more complex. And it's a little, but it's going to be. I think the way we bill is going to change. It's not necessarily just going to be by the hour. Here's what we charge, and I work an hour and a half on this. There's going to be AI's generated this filing for me or whatnot, and I didn't spend an hour and a half. I didn't have to. I spent 30 minutes. It's going to save money, but it's also going to affect as you say, the billing and. But there's also a little bit of that. You have to know what to plug in to the computer to get it to spit out what you need it to say.
Yes.
That's going to be an interesting field of what happens on the billing, finance side, the administrative side of the law firms.
Got it. Mark, over to you. What's your take on how is it going to impact the insurance side of the business? Am I going to talk to you, Lars, Hayden, or is it all going to be Chat GPT or Gemini?
I think, like to Christian's point, it won't all be that, but it's definitely a tool that's being not. You can't say slowly embraced. It's like it's in nascent stages still for us, but like there's still a lot of repetitive administrative tasks. Like, look, it'd be great to have a tool that we can use that would be more accurate than a human and some things like that. Just make sure it says and does what we need it to do to get that part right. Eliminate mistakes. I mean, I don't fear AI that's ever going to take my job because like who wants my job? First off, hey, if you want it, here you go, AI, come have it, right? But there's always going to be that, to me, like the human touch part of this, but again, it's just another tool that if it helps me do my job better, then we want to embrace it. We want to use it. And so we will see, we're seeing slow adoption, so to speak, kind of waiting for a couple of the tools to arrive, the insurance specific that become the leaders in the clubhouse. So we're all kind of confident, like, yeah, okay, that's been tailor-made to what our agency does because there's thousands of agencies in America, just like the thousands of law firms. So we're all kind of waiting, like, okay, what becomes the standard? But we'll get there, and we'll all be using it, just like email and any other tool we have. It's a tool that we can use for good, so we can do other things with it. And frankly, for me, it's like if I can eliminate the repetitive task, free up my time to have like the risk management conversations with people. I'm hoping they're using AI to free up their time, so we can talk about things that AI can't answer for us. And even if they can't answer, it could still be a guide, but like it could be a guide for us. Okay, what should we be talking about? And I get from me, like education, again, coming back around to it, our industry is confusing enough. So anything that helps a customer understand their policy or the options, like I'm all for it. And so
Yeah.
we'll get there. Like to your point, like by this time next year, I don't know, but this time in 5 years, like who knows? The pace, the acceleration of technology, and it's like we went from stone tablets to paper. Like, oh my God, we're going away from stone tablets. What's going to happen? Like, hey, you know what, guys, we're going to figure it out. We're going to realize the uses that we're going to use it for. There'll be bad uses for it, and there'll be good, positive improvements that we can all benefit from. 100%.
100%. No,
Hari,
good stuff.
on that, add one more thing. You could expect that every phone call and every meeting that you're having, especially on the legal side, is going to be recorded.
Yeah.
Because rather than me sit there and take notes of a phone call or meeting, we record it and it gets a summary gets spit out to us is just spot on, and it's kind of even better organized than my notes would be. And so, that's just kind of an important thing I would say to the people listening. Hey, expect that if you're dealing with lawyers or maybe to an insurance agent, you're going to be recorded, and all your conversations will be summarized and noted. So we'll know you ought to maybe consider doing the same. But it's interesting. It has really been helpful, to be honest with you, to be able to record those conversations.
Hari, what's the irony that AI is, Christian, you're going to have to say all that over again because AI disrupted your.
Kind of like Forrest Gump.
Well, you broke up right when you were gonna say, "Here's how AI is gonna help everything," and then the guy with the bad internet connection is bragging about AI, and then AI won't let you say good things about it because you just went all choppy.
But you can go back and talk about how you actually talked about note taking. We'll give you a second shot. AI wouldn't, but Mark and Hari are going to give you a second shot.
Yeah,
so.
there you go.
Fair enough. Basically, to keep it shorter this time.
There you go.
Am I out, or can you hear me?
Christian, you're freezing up, but let me summarize what you're saying to our audience here, right? Essentially, AI can record meetings. You expect, your meetings with lawyers to be recorded, and the notes and summary that AI spits out is better than better organized than what your own notes even would be. Is that a reasonable way to summarize it?
Better organized, better and more accurate, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100%. That's great stuff there. So let's kind of wrap this up here, gentlemen. Obviously, right? So let's go into some rapid fire questions, right? Longhorn fans here. We started the show with Longhorns. I'm assuming you guys have attended at least one Longhorn football game here, both of you, right?
Yeah.
Favorite Longhorn game that you've attended and why? I'll go with Mark first.
God, there was a game when we were in school and Houston was like an up-and-coming powerhouse. Is that yours?
The exact same one, yeah.
Then I'll take the other game. The other game I had was my brother, Christian's cousin, worked for the city of Dallas, and for the city manager's office, city manager couldn't go to Texas OU game. Gave my brother his tickets. I said, well, Paul, we got to go. You got to go to a Texas OU game at the Cotton Bowl because you got to see this side burnt orange and this side red or white or whatever, but the color differentiate and how one side of the stadium erupts and the other side is super quiet. And there were great seats, right into Governor Bush, all the celebrities that are there, just part of it. But it was the weirdest thing because it's like in the mid 90s, like the game ended in a tie. Usually when this game is over, everyone's streaming out of the Cotton Bowl into the State Fair saying, I got to get my corny dog and OU sucks, right? On our side. And then they're saying the same for UT and horns down, all this stuff. Someone's trash talking someone else. But it was like completely quiet. Everyone is coming out of the stadium. Like it was just so like it was just kind of funny to see. like no one's happy because it was a tie. You'd rather have lost or won, but tie was the worst possible scenario. And so it was kind of funny to watch that.
That's a really
but it's a great game to go to, just especially because of the rivalry and all that stuff. But I remember that one and it might be, I don't know how many ties there have been, but there won't be another tie ever. That'll be the last tie. So at least trash talking will be able to resume, for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, because the rules have changed and, all these kind of things, right? So
we got to have a winner. So
yeah. Christian, hopefully your media works.
As Mark was saying, 1991, there was a Thursday, I believe it was Thursday night game in Austin where we played Houston, and Houston came in shockingly top, one of the top teams in the nation, and we knocked them off. It was the most electric stadium I've ever been in. They've added thousands of seats since then, but just being there as a junior in college, sitting there, I may have been with Mark, but regardless, one of the most electric, and it hasn't been replaced. I haven't seen anything since then. I've been to the Sugar Bowl and to obviously the Texas OU every year. Gone to other bowl games. I've stopped doing that because we tend to lose when I go. So bad luck. I just watch
He's
it on
banned.
TV.
Yeah.
But that Houston game in college was probably the one that just really hooked me on UT football.
Yeah, interesting. That's good.
Pun intended. Yes.
Yeah.
Christian got hooked. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Arch Manning, overhyped or, he's got the skills. What's your take? Mark.
I think I think he's got skills.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he does. He's talented enough. But it's interesting to see that, if you're a UT person, you think Vince Young just carried the team all the way to a championship, but you forget the job the defense had to do against USC just to keep us in that game until Vince Young could work his magic. So, you still need the team. You need good coaching. And I'm pro NIL, pro portal. Like, these athletes, they're not students, they're athletes. This is basically minor league professional stuff. Let them get paid.
And honestly, it's leveled the playing field, right? You got
It has.
Miami and Indiana.
Which is great. Yeah. Like I said, any team can do anything at any time. And you're only angry because it's not your team doing it. Like, how dare Texas Tech spend money and get players and get good, type of thing. It's like, you know what? Everyone else is doing it. Let's just make it above board and just admit what we're doing. And then people will enjoy spending their money in that way and have at it. But I think Arch Manning will, hopefully, to Christian's point, will have a better year this year because we'll just have a better team around him.
Yeah, and he's got 1 year of, real games. And honestly, talking about NIL, I'm actually pro NIL as well because, for all the reasons you just stated. Plus, at this time of the year, at some point it got boring, right? Alabama, LSU, right? Georgia.
Yep.
So like now, it's like, honestly, it's, anybody can compete. And you're right. Texas Tech has a few billionaires who are willing to spend. There you go. Mark Cuban is willing to spend for IU. There you go.
Yep.
Right. And UT, I mean, lots of people out there willing to buy players, which is good. Good for the market, good for players, good for the schools, and honestly, good for the game. Right. So, Christian?
To answer your question about Arch, I think it's both. I think he's overhyped, and I think he will eventually live up to his talent. And I think he showed that like the second half of the season, really started coming into his own. I think it was a bit overwhelming there at the beginning of the year for him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he had very limited experience. So I think he really came along. And, again, adding these new players, I think can only help him. I'm glad he's not even given any thought to trying to go to NFL or, I think he's good enough to. 1 more year experience, I think, will really help.
Yeah,
So,
candidly, some of these guys are willing to stay 6 years in college now because they're only getting paid, right?
Yep.
Right, exactly.
So
Yeah, that's where the money is there. I mean, again, I appreciate you not talking at all about the Cowboys because I thought we were talking about legitimate football teams. Not that UT plays that way either.
Anyway, maybe we should talk about the Mavericks or not, right? Because it's like I'm a huge Mavericks fan, or I was, right, until they traded Luka Doncic. So, it's nuts. So
I kind of wish they'd stop winning.
Yeah.
They won again last night. I wish they'd stop winning so we get a better draft pick,
It's the only draft pick that we control.
I know.
Through 2031 or something like that, right? So
Right, so.
It's crazy. Gentlemen, honestly, it's been an honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming on the show and educating the audience a little bit about insurance and a little bit about business law and how to set up companies. And hopefully we'll do it again sometime in the future.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there a prize if anyone who's listened this far past all the insurance talk and then the UT talk? I think if there's any non-insurance Aggies, they didn't make it past 5 minutes in, right? So that I get. But if anyone who's made it this far, contact Hari. He'll have a prize for you. Congratulations. Yeah.
Yep, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it. Sorry about the technical glitches at the beginning. I guess in the middle, too.
Yes. I mean, no worries. I mean, you just proved that you're a great attorney, so you don't need tech. So
something like that.
All right. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Coming up next on From Boots to Boardroom.
Our weekly win call at 409, and we know in this industry, brother's keeper is a big term, right? We want to be our brother's keeper.
In the next part of Brian's episode, we continue our conversation on building a transparent culture where every good catch matters. Brian explains his brother's keeper philosophy and why he traded the safety cop mentality for a leadership style centered on care. Stay tuned.